Well, here it is. You asked for it, I've delivered. So what we're going to do is take a direct comparison between Meng's AH-64D, and I've got down in here one of Takom's. Now this is the AH-64E, so there is some small differences, but we've covered these anyway. So I've done a full review, standalone review of the Meng one, which was up recently. A little bit before that, because obviously it's a little bit been out a while now, I have also done a full review for the Takom kit as well. If you want to go off and see them as individuals, please go off and look now. Now, what we're going to do is just look at a couple of key areas. It's not a full review, because as I said, I've just done them and I don't want to do another one. All right, but we're going to look at some key areas. Obviously, some of the things about the instructions, what you get actually in the kit. We're going to look at obviously some of the details with it, and then some more specific areas. So we're going to be looking at surface detail, riveting, how that is and all the rest of it, some of the interiors, especially around the cockpit, and then some other things certainly around about the bays, the electronic bays, how they all work and everything else. And then I think from that you can make a little bit of a judgment all the way through. So I will explain obviously which one we're looking at as we make our way through. So what we're going to do, we'll get some of this tidied up a little bit, and then we'll have a look, starting off with the instructions. Okay, so down in front you can see on this side we've got the Meng. If I turn it around this way, you might be able to see it where it says Meng. This is the Meng one, and over on this side we've got the Takom. All right, so the first thing to do is actually what you get in the kit. Pretty much they're very similar. They've both got rotor fold and all things like that, but there is some differences with some of the parts you actually get with this one. So with the Takom one, you get a lot more photo etch. All right, we've got lots of photo etch down in there. We've also got a little bit of 3D printed little pegs and things like that. We've also got a little bit of polyurethane stuff down in here with some of the ammo for the guns. They've done it that particular way. All right, decal wise, not much going on. Again, the Takom one, they've done specific versions of right the way through with their kits. All right, so down in here, as you can see, you've got basically 4 sheets of photo etch. All right, down in there. The actual Takom one, sorry, the Meng one over here, definitely not as much photo etch. You just get a few bits down in here, but what you do get is a full mask set that's been done for you as well. Now that, as you've seen in the review, is on a piece of acetate. It's really nicely done, incredibly sharply, and it's an inside out mask. So again, that's going to help you out. So if you're not a fan of photo etch, you're definitely going to be more gravitas over to here than obviously over on there. But again, on this particular one, there is no mask set, but obviously you are paying the price because it's not got quite as much photo etch. Now photo etch on helicopters is very much like armor. It gives it a far better scale effect, but does come at a price. So for instance, this one down in here, this is all the fins for the Hellfire missiles. So again, if you can be bothered to put tiny little fins on a Hellfire missile, or you can just have one that's there, then you know where you're going to go for. Again, when I was doing the review, you might remember when I spoke about the Takom one, I was saying it's a shame it didn't have some of the grill work done over key little installation points on the actual model, because they're actually molded in plastic. Takom gets this one because they are in photo etch, and it's got all the main ones that you could ever want down in there. They are actually all done in photo etch, plus some of the other details as well. So from a point of view of what you get with it, the photo etch is a really nice bonus if you're into photo etch. If you're not into photo etch, you're probably going to go with the main one because it doesn't worry about all of those ones down in there. And again, really nice. We've got a mask set, obviously no mask set with the actual Takom one. Now, one of the big criticisms has been with the actual, I'll just pop these down in here, with the actual kits has been the instructions. All right, so when we first looked at the Takom instructions, you might remember we pointed it out, it's got no color callouts anywhere on this one, and I said jokingly, but that's not a problem because everything is literally helo drab everywhere apart from some points. What's really nice though with the Meng one is that it does call out all the way through for all of the actual various color callouts everywhere. So we've got cockpit colors and things like that right the way through on this particular one. So again, very, very similar internally how these go together, apart from a couple of key points. Obviously down in here they've made it more modular on the Meng one, which is our top one up here, because we've got tops of instrument panels obviously are separate. Obviously the one we've got down in here is specific to the type, and there is subtle differences between all the different types of longbows out there. But again, I think that the Meng one is looking more backward dating it to be able to do an AH-64A, so that's why they've changed it, because a lot of these bits in here aren't on the A. But again, just looking at it, you can probably see that, yeah, quite frankly, they go together incredibly similar the way it actually goes. Another nice touch, obviously, with the Meng one is it's in colour, so it gives you an idea. But you can see you've got colour callouts absolutely everywhere on this one. We will be looking at the kit parts of these individually, but as you can see, the way it actually goes is pretty similar. But there is some touches down on the Takom one that we said which aren't available on the Meng one in the cockpit. Main one being the actual instrument panel combing. There's some little eyebrows. They are a separate down in here on the Takom one where they're not actually on the Meng one, so they're just molded in the closed position. Again, I'm not going to go into differences to things like the TDAC and stuff like that, purely because obviously these are different kits. It's the way that it's actually done. But the Meng one, like I said in the review, it's quite nice because you get both types. You've got the one with the sort of heads down one, and you've got the one with the TV type screen onto it as well with the monitor. So again, that's nice ways that they go through. Both of them internally, it's very, very similar how they actually go together, to be honest with you. So you've all got to be opening up holes and all the bits and pieces. You can see down in here, rotor heads and stuff like that. They are incredibly similar. The instructions, I do have to say, are a little bit clearer and a little bit more easy to follow, definitely on the Meng one, than they are on the Takom. But again, I don't think the Takom ones are that bad. I know they've been given a lot of flack over the time, but actually I don't think it is that bad. All right, so you can see they are incredibly similar how they go through. They do it in different ways and styles and things, definitely how it all goes in there, but roughly they are very, very similar of how this all works and goes in right the way through to these side areas and various things in. But again, there's subtle differences which we'll have a look at the moment. Generally though, I have to say, from a point of view of following on the instructions, the Meng one has definitely got it over the actual Takom one, because the Takom one, although it's all fine and it's all here, it's just a little bit more disjointed. All right, especially when you come along to things like the engines, it's a lot nicer laid out the way that they've shown it in these exploded type diagrams to how they are down in here. I think the parts count definitely on the Takom one is slightly higher when it comes to the engine. So again, if you're a little bit into all your engines and things like that, you're going to love the engine work. But as you can see, there's not a lot of differences between it. I wouldn't say this is a big deal breaker, but the only thing is definitely on the Takom one, this photo etch all starts to come to life because it's adding lots of surface detail down onto the helicopter. Well, obviously on the actual Meng one, it's all molded in plastic. But again, this is one of those things, if you're not a fan of photo etch, you're going to prefer the Meng one, you know, at the end of the day. But generally, as you can see, they go together incredibly similar of how it all goes. There's a lot of similarities. Obviously, up here, we've got the photo etch set, the photo mask set for the clear parts. Obviously, we don't get that on the actual Takom one. The clear parts as well, which we will have a look at, it's got a different configuration of how the clear parts go in. I've got to admit, I think the actual Meng one is better than the Takom, purely because these sides don't open. It's not going to be as complex to go together. The actual Takom one, you've got a multi-part for all the various clear parts down in here. But generally, they are very, very similar as they go through. And again, some areas I think are a little bit more detailed, definitely on the actual Meng one than they are on the Takom one. Certainly around this front area as well for the actual targeting stuff and the night vision gear and all the rest of it as all that sort of goes in. But generally, they are incredibly similar the way that they all go together down in there. So I have to say, without going through every step by step, they are pretty much on par with each other, but depending if you like photo etch or not will depend on if you actually want to go through and use the Takom kit or the Meng kit. If you're not into photo etch, obviously you're going to go Meng all the way. Also, I think the instructions, because they are in colour and things like that, they're just a lot easier to follow than they are if they are just in the normal black and white. And I think even though the booklet is smaller, I think these are easier to follow. And the actual way it's been put together and the layout, I have to say, the Meng one sort of gets it from me. So from a point of view of obviously the books, colour callouts, really nicely detailed, full colour printing, things like that, over the actual Takom one. So from my point of view, the Meng one from manuals and construction definitely gets it from me. All right, so that's phase one. Phase two, clearly, is going to be the fuselages. And again, side by side, there's not a lot in it. Obviously, there's a little bit of differences around how they've gone through with this one. And again, because of just the way they are and how modular they are, again, they've approached things in different ways. The big thing is the plastic. So the plastic on this one is very soft, very flexible. This is the Takom kit. The actual Meng one, there's no bend in that whatsoever. It's literally solid. There's no actual flex to this at all. Again, some of this is because of the way it is. This one underneath here has got a basically two half situation going together. This one, you've got a little bit of flex, so that's doing it. But the plastic does seem a little bit softer, definitely on the Takom kit, as it does to the actual Meng one. So just for reference, this is the Meng one here with the actual solid base into it, where obviously it's a separate fit just down underneath here. So looking at the surface detail. So surface detail, as you can see, is really very, very nice down in here on the Takom one. It's on the Meng one. So even I'm going to get confused doing this. It's very, very nice all the way through. And again, some of these areas are taken care with photo etch on the actual Takom one. But generally, if you look at it, you can see, get my glasses so I can see as well. It's very, very hard to call it. It's actually very, very similar when you do a side-by-side here all the way through. And again, up here as well, obviously this is the Takom kit. We've got extra bays that are open and things like that. And again, we don't have them down on this one. But generally, looking at the riveting detail, they are not a lot into it. If I had to call it from a fineness point of view, I would have to say that I think that the actual Meng one has it a little bit more. It's incredibly close when you're looking at surface details and things like that, but I just think that the Meng one just nips it in the bud just a little bit, but we are hardly talking. It's only because when you look at certain areas on here, they are, you know, down in here on the tail, you can see the difference in the riveting. It's just a little bit more subtle, I think, on the Meng one than it is on the actual Takom kit. The Takom kits are a little bit more pronounced. Now the thing is, I'm no expert on this, but it's a good example here. We've got this extra little plating on the top here. This one down in here is a lot more, I don't know, it's almost toyish compared to this one. So again, it may be though that this one is correct. I don't know. Obviously I haven't been up to close to Apache in a long, long time, but it certainly does look that way. But generally, as you can see on a side-by-side, there isn't a great deal of differences. Like down on here, don't take any notice of this. This is purely because this is for the Echo, and I think that's the laser warning receiver as well and things. So obviously the other one wouldn't have it. But generally, I just seem to think that it just looks a little bit sharper, a little bit crisper, shall we say. I think the Takom one is just a little bit softer. And things. So again, different areas are showing it in different ways, and obviously going forward, like down here on the nose, you can see this very, very little between the two. Very, very difficult to call this one because they are incredibly similar in every way, as you might imagine. But you can see clearly some of the differences down in here, the way that they actually do it. And again, various set of parts onto this one, like down here at the back and on, they are just slightly different, but all the riveting does seem to match up. They are incredibly close when it comes to riveting and things like that on here. So generally, I just think that maybe, again, it's really, really close. It's very, very hard to call it, but again, you can make your own decisions on this one. Again, this is the Meng one at the top, and obviously this is the Takom one just down on the bottom. All right. So anyway, there's your fuselages. That should take your choice on that particular one. Another important area is clearly in the cockpit. So again, we've got different ways of doing this particular one. So over here, we've actually got the Takom one, and you might remember on the cockpit seats, sides and things like that, it's all pre-molded in. Now again, what they've actually done is this, I do believe, will probably be specific for this particular aircraft for the Echo. So they haven't had to do it multi-part like obviously the Meng one is multi-parted. But what we can do is look at some joint areas together. So what we've got down in here, this is obviously the one for the Meng kit. These are all separate parts, but we can look at the side paneling down in here, and obviously we've got the actual rear bulkhead down in here with all the circuit breakers on the top. So if we do look at circuit breakers next to circuit breakers, again, incredibly hard to tell the difference. If I had to say, I think the Meng's one's padding is a little bit more crisper, shall we say, but generally that's incredibly tight between the two because there is no differences in these two. They're just different, sort of the quilting, the sort of soundproofing on the back here, very, very hard to sort of pull them apart. And again, if we look at the sidewall for the instrument panels, they are incredibly similar. There isn't much difference in them. They're looking pretty much identical all the way through. Next area, of course, is going to be the actual instrument panel. So over here, this is the one for the actual Meng one. So we've got the two screens and the little screen at the top and all the rest of it. We've got that one down in there. And then over on here, this is actually the one for the Takom kit. I have to say I prefer the Takom one. The Takom one looks a little bit more three-dimensional. It's got a little bit more raised details into it. This one just looks like it's a little bit softer molded. If you look at that one, and then we come in and we look at this one, you can see this one I think probably has it. I think the Takom one looks a little bit better down in here. So that looks very nice indeed. And again, other ones to look at, we've got this one up here. This is for the gunner on the Takom. And then down on here, we've got the other one, which is obviously for the Meng one. And again, I think the Takom one just looks a little bit nicer in my eye. But differences between the two, can hardly tell them. The details on there are exactly the same. They look incredibly similar. So really, really difficult to sort of, you know, pull these two apart. If I had to say, and I, you know, gun against your head type of thing, I would have to say I think the Takom one wins it for cockpit detail. Unless you're going to stick a Quinta set in it, then it all goes out the window. Okay, so next up we've got the pods, if you like. So as you might remember, we had these side pods down in here. Now this is for the Meng one, and obviously you need to put in this section. So what I've done here, we've got these parts to show. So this is the Meng camp over here, which we'll look at the moment, and then over here we've got molded in place on the Takom one. And again, they've done it so it's specific for each version. So down in here, we can see the difference actually between the two of how they're actually going to go. So this is the one I do believe for, we get them down the right way. So this will be the loading section, which would be on here. So again, if we just do a side-by-side comparison, you can probably see not a lot in it. Again, we've got panels that can be changed out and onto this one. But generally though, the side details and everything is up to you. The difference is these are more sort of rectangle, the latches, and on this kit they're more oval. So again, I don't know which one's correct. But generally though, as you can see, there's not a lot in it. They look incredibly similar. There's not a lot of difference going down in these. Very nice indeed from that point of view. So from a parts point, again, take your pick. They are incredibly similar. From a detail point from the base, so just to do a side by side, you've actually got here, this one looks a little bit bigger than this one. If you look at it as an overall, this one's definitely larger than this one. So this is exactly the same items. So as you can see down in here, this is where the ammo feed is going for the 30mm. And again, it's got it over there. And again, detail wise, I have to say I somewhat prefer the Meng one because it's got all the wiring leads coming off. So we've got all the covers and the insulation and all the rest of it coming through, and we've got the wires. Clearly on the Takom one, we've got the plugs coming off, but they don't go anywhere. And again, this is personal choice between if you want to do it with your own wiring to make it a little bit more 3D, or you're going to just be happy to dry brush or poker pen, in my case, all the leads into this one. I think I would prefer this one because it's all here in place and it will save me probably a good couple of hours having to rewire this entire system. All right. So again, but if you notice, there's definitely a scale issue between these two because this one is definitely bigger than this one. And again, this one is closer to you because I've got it stepped up as well. So it's probably from a force perspective, even a little bit different from there. If you was to put it down roughly the same height, you can probably see how much difference there is in these two. So there's definitely something going on there, and I don't know which one's correct, but for details point of view, they're exactly the same. They are completely identical. All right. For the other side, we can just show down in here, and we can be a little bit more close together. And again, you've got the same situation. Do you want it with the leads on or off? But they are identical in every single way. There is no difference between the two. So it depends on which way you want to go with it. All right. So personal choice definitely on those ones. So do you want to go with it all pre-molded in, or do you want to pop them in as a separate? Do you want to do it wired or not? That's completely up to you. All right. So that's those. So last up really, as I say, I'm not going to go through every single last part because we'll be in forever, but it's the clear parts. So I'll get this one out of the bag. I didn't realise I rebagged it. Okay, so clarity wise, they are both absolutely crystal clear. There is no problem with the crystal clearness of these. They are absolutely both beautiful. And again, we're just putting into some of the side-by-side details. So you might notice up on here, we've got some of these little bits and pieces are going around on the top. And then over on this one, we've definitely got a lot more going on here. So again, which one's correct and not, I'm not too sure. But just a little bit sharper the way this one is. My biggest bugbear with this one, which is the Takom one, this one here, is obviously clearly we're into the situation where if you've got the doors open, that's fine. But down on this side, you've got to glue them all in there. So you've got to worry about glue seams coming around with this. What I love about this one, it's the old-fashioned way of doing it. It is molded in one. So from our point of view, this will just be a lot easier for putting this in, because this is going to be a straightforward drop-in replacement, and then obviously you're going to pop the doors in afterwards once it's in. This one, you're going to have to put it together and then get it all in there and all the stuff from it. As for details, we can do obviously really nice sharp details on all the doors. Obviously all the parts are crystal clear, but again, it's one of those ones, where would you call this? Really very, very difficult, all right? But I have to say, I think the surface detail down on here on the Takom one is a little bit better than the surface detail that is down on here on the Meng one, purely because it's got all the little handles and latches and the bits and pieces down onto this one. So again, it's one of those ones, where do you want to take your pick? Between these, it's very, very difficult to do it. Personally though, I think I would sacrifice the problem with obviously this being multi-part, even though it's slightly better detail, I think, to having it nicely in one. Because again, my problem is that up inside here, you've got various handles which are going to go up in here, and there's a rear view mirror for the gunner and various bits on this one. They're going to be easy to install because it's all down there in one place. This one over here, you're going to have to put this side in, and then you're going to be gluing around and doing various things down in here. That's a lot of work going on in a very, very small area. The handle marks are there. You might see the two holes for them. It can do it, but I think this one, they're molded into the corner as it is on the real thing. These ones, because of obviously necessities of where to do it, are put in the top, which means you can probably see these handles are literally right onto the clear part. So PVA glue and being careful is going to be a must on there, so you don't fog up or get glue marks on any of your clear parts. So from my point of view, I'm just going to have to call it that I think the Meng one is better down in there, purely from simplicity of the build than anything else. All right. So there you have it. What's the best one? It's going to be personal to you. Details wise, is nothing between it. It's very, very difficult to call it. I think they're both identical. From ease of build, I've got to say I think the Meng one is easier than the Takom one. I think the Takom one with the instructions and the bits and pieces is just going to be a more straightforward build just to do the Meng one than it is the actual Takom one. I think the details on the Takom one are slightly nicer though, everywhere. Even though it's going to be a little bit more of a complex build, I do think that the Takom kit is just a little bit better on details right the way through. And again, it's the approach to the way the kit is done. This one's incredibly modular, so we can expect to see the Echo type come out with this one, perhaps some of the foreign ones, even the AH-1 version, the UK version, and I can imagine we're going to see that. It could be backdated to an A as well at some point. That's using that overall kit. The ones for the Takom ones, they've done it different. They've actually produced these with separate sprues, which obviously if you get different versions, they'll have different sprues in it, so forth and so on. So again, they do an early longbow version. They do a late version of it as well. I think they've got about 5 different versions of this kit is out there in an Apache in one form or another. So you can be more specific for what you want to do, and then you don't have to worry about having the wrong variants and things like that. So again, from them. What's really nice is both of them come with rotorfold, and I know there's a lot said about that because I think the Meng one was initially announced that it was coming out, you know, first it was the first out the gate with details, and then the Takom one said they were doing it with the bonus, which they all come with, rotorfold set, and then lo and behold, then the Meng one came with it as well. So again, it was one of those ones where it's like they were trying to outdo each other. Again, Takom have flooded the market now over the last few months with every version of the Apache that is out there currently, where obviously the Meng ones, they've taken a little bit of a slower route. They've come out with the first one with the longbow, but I'm expecting to see those other versions come down the line now that perhaps some of the storm over this particular kit has died down a little bit, just to give it a little bit more legs. So which one, if I had to build one tomorrow, would I build? I would do the Meng one. I think the Meng one is just going to be an easier build, more straightforward all the way through. It's got some very nice touches. It's still highly, highly detailed. But when it comes to surface detail and some of the niceties like the photo etch and stuff, I think the Takom one's got it. So again, if you wanted to be a little bit more complex with the build, go with the Takom. If you want to be a little bit more of an easy build, do the Meng. So really the choice is yours. But what we've learned from doing this side by side, I can't call anything between both of them. They both look absolutely stunning. So there's no losers here. This is personal choice. If you want to do a bit more of a complex build, a little bit more straightforward. That's literally your options between the two. And again, tiny little bit more detail, I think, on the Takom one that's on the Meng one, but we are talking marginal. The big thing is, which one is going to build up the easiest and the best and going to look good? I imagine they're both going to be fantastic. We're here in 2023. There's no such thing as bad kits out there and unbuildable. It's just going to be one of those things which is going to be a little bit more of the straightforward. And again, I think the Meng one's going to get it, just the way they've designed it and the breakdown and the way it goes together. Certainly the instructions are a lot easier to follow than it is on the actual Takom one. But really, the choice is yours. And that's what we say about this hobby. It's not my opinion. It's not anybody's opinion. It's your opinion and which way you're going to tackle it and do it, because there is no rights and wrongs in this hobby. There's no right and wrong kit. They're both amazing kits, and I highly recommend to go out and get any of them because they are that good. So from my point of view, I'm going to call it a dead heat. From your point of view, which one do you want to build?